Hey, good to see you again. Or good to see my camera again, which you're then gonna see me through, and then... Anyway, this video is a bit more serious than usual. There's really nothing funny in it, and I'm gonna speak English because it just seems right for this topic. So, I'm gonna teach you guys about racist slurs in English. That is, những, miệt, phân, biệt, chúng, because I found that a lot of you are confused by them, and these are some of the most dangerous words in English. I mean, if you say fuck or shit, for example, some people might react kind of like, oh. But if you say the words I'm going to talk about in this video, the consequences could be much more severe. You could get kicked out of school, you could lose your job, or you could get the shit beaten out of you. So obviously, these are words that you shouldn't use, but if you're planning to really integrate with the English-speaking community, you will hear them or see them eventually. So you ought to understand them. We'll start with the word that causes you guys the most confusion, nigger. Now, you've probably all heard it many times in hip-hop songs. But just because Jay-Z or Kanye West says it, doesn't mean that you should say it. The word nigger has a long and complicated history. In the 18th and 19th centuries, states in the southern US kept black people as slaves. And during that time, nigger was the commonly used word to talk about them. After the slaves were freed in 1863, other words that were considered more respectful started to be used. For example, Negro, which was then followed by colored, which was then followed by black. But the word nigger stuck around, and when white people use it now, its purpose is to sort of take black people back to that time when they were slaves, a time when they were treated like animals and not really even considered human. So you can understand why black people find it extremely insulting to be called a nigger. However, and this is where it gets confusing for you guys, in about the 1970s or so, some black people took the word nigger, which they usually pronounce more like nigga, and they started using it among themselves, kind of as a term of endearment, like dude or bro. And then that usage started appearing in hip-hop songs, like this one from 1983. Just play ball or be an entertainer, 'cause niggas like me can't read too well. So that's what you're hearing when you listen to Jay-Z or Snoop Dogg or whoever. Black people using it together kind of to express solidarity. However, any one of those rappers who you hear saying nigga in their songs would likely be extremely offended and angry if a non-black person called them that. And most non-black people in America never would call a black person a nigger because we know how insulting that word is. In fact, some people are so concerned with not causing offense, they won't even say the word nigger in a discussion about that word, and instead they'll say the N-word. This comes from a way that people often euphemize swear words with children. For example, instead of telling their kids, you can't watch this movie because they say fuck too much, parents will say, you can't watch this movie because they say the F word too much. So that's where the phrase the N-word comes from. And if you ever read the news in English, you'll see it a lot. Who's allowed to say the N-word? N-word, 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 N-word. Personally, I think that's silly and childish. Using a racist word in a discussion about that word doesn't make you a racist. Using that word to hurt other people and assert your superiority over them, that makes you a racist. Okay, I want to move on now to talk about three other groups that are sometimes spoken about in racist terms. Mexicans, Arabs, and finally, you guys, East Asians. If you go to the UK, Australia, or Canada, you probably won't hear any negative things said about Mexicans. But in the US, some people really hate them because they think too many Mexicans are coming into the country illegally and taking American jobs. So probably the most common insult applied to them is wetback, lung uat, because the idea is that a lot of them have to swim across the Rio Grande to get into Texas, and they get wet in the process. Another term you might hear in movies or see online is beaner, which comes from the fact that Mexican cuisine has a lot of beans in it. But I've always liked Mexican food, including Mexican beans. So to me, it seems like an odd thing to insult. Moving on now to Arabs, there are three different terms you might encounter. The first one is camel jockey. A jockey is someone who races horses professionally. And, well, in the Arab world, they have traditionally ridden camels a lot, so camel jockeys. The second term is towelhead or raghead, dokanao, which come from the tradition of Arab men wearing turbans or keffiyeh, and Arab women wearing the hijab. Now, to understand exactly why these terms are so offensive, you need to know that a rag in English is usually a very old, low-value piece of cloth that's been used to clean up messes. It's not something people would ever put on their bodies, so the word raghead is meant to imply that Arabs are dirty and backward. And the final term you might hear is sand nigger. Sand because of all the sandy desert in the Arab world. It should be obvious why that one's offensive. And finally, I want to bring it home for you guys and talk about East Asians. Racist terms for Asians are usually applied country by country. The most common one is chink, which means a Chinese person. In the late 19th century, white Americans used that word to refer to Chinese immigrants who would come to the country to work on the railroads and do other manual labor. Over time, white people began to see the Chinese as a threat to their own jobs, so the word chink became an insult. Moving east a bit, people from Japan are sometimes called by the slur Jap. That might not sound especially offensive since it's just short for Japanese, but like most of these words, its offensiveness comes from its history. From 1941 to 1945, the United States fought a brutal war against Japan. And during that time, Jap was the most commonly used word to refer to the Japanese. It appeared constantly in newspaper headlines and also a lot of propaganda that depicted the Japanese as dishonest, bloodthirsty animals. So when someone uses it now, it still has that connotation. And finally, I want to talk about one more word that can be used for all East Asians, but is especially used for Koreans and the Vietnamese: gook. Historians aren't exactly sure where the word came from, but the most plausible theory is that American soldiers fighting in the Korean War from 1950 to 1953 heard the local people saying "migook, migook," which in Korean means America. But the soldiers misunderstood it as "migook," so that's what they started calling them. Then, about 15 years later, when American soldiers were fighting in Vietnam, they continued to use that word for their Vietnamese enemies. And if you watch an American movie about that war, you'll hear it constantly.
Gooks, gooks, gook, gooks, 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 gooks.
So when someone uses it today, they're using it with that kind of attitude, to imply a sneaky enemy who they don't really understand and certainly don't respect. And there you have it, a video full of words that you shouldn't use. If you do encounter people using them, it'll be your choice how to react. But I hope you'll remember that just because someone else uses English like an asshole, that doesn't mean you have to as well. Be good to each other. Peace. Hey! Once again, this video was brought to you by Elsa, which in my opinion is the slickest pronunciation app out there. If you've heard me talking about Elsa in my past few videos and still haven't tried it out, go give it a try. It's free for 7 days, so if you try it and don't like it or don't find it useful, you're not out anything. If you try it and do like it, then you can go to the page elsaspeak.com/Dan Hauer and get a discount of 10 to 80% on the normal price, depending on the package you choose. If you do that, you'll not only be helping your own pronunciation, you'll be supporting this channel too. Oh, and one more thing that some of you might have noticed in the video is I have a bruise on my left eyelid. I don't know how I got it. It hasn't been painful at all, and it's now a few days after I shot that main part of the video, and it seems to be getting better. So please don't feel that you need to go down into the comments and say, "Oh, mắt của Dan bị làm sao vậy?" or "Chúc thầy Dan nhanh khỏe nhá." I'm fine, really. See you next time.